Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Chai Talk with Wajatali for the Left Hook Substack. Thank you all who were joining us just about 2 minutes ago with Jared Yates Sexton. This is back to back, a double header, folks. I got two superstars. I have Allison Gill. You know her as Mueller, She Wrote. She writes for The Breakdown at MuellerSheWrote.com. She hosts about 16 podcasts, I think. And Allison wrote a fantastic article on Mueller, She Wrote called The Supreme Court Strikes Again. And folks, if you have been following, I don't know, the past 2 days, the Roberts-led conservative, complicit, corrupt Supreme Court, thank you for that alliteration, I'm an English major, has given the Trump administration yet again another get out of jail free card and allowed them today, folks, based on some procedural standing issues, the Supreme Court stayed a lower court order from U.S. Judge William Alsop that had required the Trump administration to rehire approximately 16,000, not 1,600, 16,000 probationary federal employees who were terminated from 6 different agencies. The Supreme Court's decision was based on the issue of standing, ruling that the nonprofit organizations that filed the lawsuit did not have the legal right to do so, which allows the Trump administration to move forward with the termination of 16,000 federal employees, while broader legal questions about the firings are being considered in other courts. And yesterday, Allison, the Supreme Court, on a procedural issue, in a shameful, disgusting, infuriating 5-4 decision in which Amy Barrett joined the 3 liberals, said, you know what? These folks, these 238 people, whom the 60 Minutes in a just a staggering report said overwhelmingly are innocent, who were kidnapped, detained, and shipped to a foreign prison in El Salvador, where our taxpayer dollars are paying Nayib Bukele, the crypto tyrant bro, $6 million to torture them. You know what? They're owed due process. But guess what, Donald? Even though your administration admitted that this father in Maryland right now, who is here legally due to withholding of removal, who is married to a citizen, who has a 5-year-old citizen kid, whom you admitted, based on an administrative error, you illegally deported to El Salvador, the country that he escaped from, you don't have to bring him back. To break this all down, we got Allison, who wrote a great article, The Supreme Court Strikes Again. And why did you frame it that way? The Supreme Court strikes again.
Well, I mean, it reminded me of how they did the opposite in the immunity decision. Back, I think it was December of 2023. Jack Smith, Trump filed his immunity petition in the Judge Chutkin in the January 6th case. And Jack Smith said, okay, this is probably something that the Supreme Court needs to decide. We don't need to go through the whole long process of having the appeals court look at it. So let's leapfrog over the appeals court. Supreme Court, you guys have to make this call. You need to make this rule for the ages. And the Supreme Court was like, nah, bro, go through the regular order of stuff. And 6 months later, they scheduled oral arguments on the last possible day you can schedule oral arguments. They released their decision months later on the last possible day that the Supreme Court can release decisions for the term, effectively eating up at least 6 months of 6 months of due process for Donald Trump. And these 238 Venezuelans, 75% of whom have never committed a crime, they took 6 days to gut their due process. Now, they did get, a lot of people are pointing out, they did get due process. The Supreme Court says they get due process, but the due process they're getting is worse than the due process that they
Exactly.
got during Nazi Germany. It's like we have to tell them, hey, we're going to ship you to El Salvador in a week. But if you can find a really expensive lawyer, you got like 50 grand or whatever, you can file a habeas petition. In the Fifth Circuit, which you will lose. And that's your due process. So I hardly think that that is what I would consider robust due process, because first of all, you don't need to have this as a habeas petition. You can use the APA to do this, which is what the ACLU and the plaintiffs were arguing in this case. But also, they took the class away, right? And this is kind of similar with what the 16,000 probationary employees that were riffed. They're like, no, groups like unions, you don't have standing to sue. We want you to do all this one at a time, pay for your own lawyers, but not
Yep.
any of these four law firms, five, six, seven, eight law firms. They're not allowed in federal buildings. And they aren't going to help you because we've twisted their arms. But find your own lawyer. No need to do this all at once in a reasonable fashion. And a large part of the dissent that came from the liberal justices that Amy Coney Barrett signed on to was about that, was about the procedure itself, and saying what if people who don't have a bunch of money, who don't even know what habeas means, and how are you going to inform them that they have this right to file this petition? And are you going to do it in their language? Are you, what does that even look like? Judge Boasberg didn't even want to touch it. He's like, I'm just here to figure out why y'all ignored my order to turn the planes around. I'm not here to set up a due process system, although I think APA or habeas, I'm not going to argue that because that's not what's at issue here. What's at issue here is that they were removed illegally under the Alien Enemies Act, which shouldn't be invoked in the first place. And none of that was addressed by the Supreme Court. So when I say that the Supreme Court strikes again, I mean either they use their shadow docket to just steamroll over people's due process, and as the dissenter said, not even a scintilla of a bare bones argument, briefing, or anything to determine that habeas is the only course for these folks and one at a time and not in a class. Whereas for Donald Trump, he gets months and months and months
Oh,
of consideration and all the due process in the world. And if we don't enjoy equal due process, then we aren't equal under the law.
that was fantastic. I appreciate that robust breakdown. I'm an attorney. I haven't practiced in 13 years, and even I couldn't do that. Judge Jackson's dissent was really good, talking about how the Supreme Court, under Roberts and the conservative majority, is using the shadow docket to pretty much steamroll over our rights and bum rush pretty much anything they want. What I've said is that, when people say checks and balances, I say for people in power, it means nothing. And for this Supreme Court, when you say strikes again, I've used this analogy that to them, the Constitution is like Play-Doh, right? They come up with this bullshit originalist theory. It's not even originalist. They mix and match what they want. They bend it. It's not like new. It's been done before. Dred Scott, Plessy v. Ferguson, right? And you're seeing it in real time. When it comes to Donald Trump, absolute immunity for core functions of the government. That was the shocking summer decision that was 5-4, and Roberts went along with it, which essentially, as you know, and I know, I called you Mueller, she wrote, Allison, gave Donald Trump a get out of jail free card for all of his criminal convictions and allegations. And now they're saying, okay, this administration seems hell bent on deporting anyone who looks brown, anyone who looks black. So let's see, what can we do? Okay, you have due process, but the way we're going to spin it is retroactive due process. Now tell me, Allison, these 238 people, these brown men, which 60 Minutes over the weekend in a very sobering report said that 70% of them have no criminal records. That means they're innocent, folks. And that the 27%, the rest, essentially, nonviolent offenses. What happened? They got picked up, they got detained, they got kidnapped from their families without due process. They were put on a plane, shackled, sent to El Salvador, where we gave Bukele $6 million to house them. Their families didn't even know where they were. Their families like, where did my friend go? Where did my father go? Oh, is that my barber? The Venezuelan barber? It's my family member. Oh my God. I recognize him from a tattoo after seeing him hooded underneath, with shackles. So even their family didn't know, right? I'm stressing this, folks, because we know enough facts now where the gay Venezuelan barber, they thought he was a gang member because he had a rose tattoo. Another coach, they thought he was a gang member because these idiots can't tell the difference between a Venezuelan gang member's tattoo and the real Madrid tattoo. The father here in Maryland, close by, whom the judge 5 years ago looked at his case and said, we're going to give you withholding of removal, right? You can't go back to El Salvador because you're of the protected class that if you go back, you might die. In the past 5 years, folks, he's lived here legally, zero criminal charges, zero criminal offenses, married to a woman, has a kid. Now he's in prison. And what they're saying is, you admitted that this man was unlawfully detained and shipped out. You admitted it. So bring him back. And now the Supreme Court is saying, you have due process. Just try again, but
Mhm.
make sure the procedure is right. How are they going to try again, Allison, when he's friggin' in El Salvador, shackled, and we have no idea if his wife and his kid have the means to do this? Please tell me.
Well, the interesting thing is that Steve Vladeck, who writes the One First Substack, which everyone also should subscribe to, brought up the fact that there's a lot of case law that says that, people within that are being detained in the United States, according to the Supreme Court ruling that came out last night, will have to file a habeas petition in the jurisdiction in which they're being detained. But if you are outside of the country, your jurisdiction, and there's a lot of case law backing this up, your jurisdiction is probably still going to be DC. And so what I'm hoping is that these lawyers for the ACLU, Gallant, and the people who are helping out just at first the 5 Venezuelans and then the full protected class will file these habeas petitions individually for these members in DC courts. Now, of course, that's beleaguering the point about how stupid and wasteful that is. The courts have said that multiple times. That's why we have classes and class action suits. But so they're sitting there, and the dissenting justices, Sotomayor and Jackson specifically, brought up the clean hands point. Do you remember during the documents case when Donald Trump sued to get his stuff back that he stole,
Mm,
and he wanted a special master appointed, and
yeah,
Cannon gave him a special master, and she granted Donald Trump equitable jurisdiction after giving him a big giant hint in a minute order to do so. And the government's argument, and the reason that Merrick Garland won that argument was because you cannot have equitable jurisdiction for inequitable acts. You can't come to the court and look for relief for some shit that you did that's illegal. For example, if I'm a drug dealer and I give the person the drugs and I don't get the money, I can't go to the court and be like, help me get my money. You have to come to the court with clean hands. And the fact that Judge Boasberg was in the middle of contempt proceedings with one of the
that's right.
parties in this case, the justices that dissented, the liberal justices said, first of all, why is this court even giving equitable consideration to a party that does not yet, we haven't decided, have clean hands in the middle of a proceeding to decide whether they have clean hands? Was it to sneak it in under the deadline, like before you say that they actually defied a court order? You're going to
Yes.
sneak this in now and say, oh no, we're going to give you equitable consideration on your point here, on your emergency stay. And that doesn't even touch the fact that temporary restraining orders are generally not even appealable. You have to wait until you get a preliminary injunction, and we were in the middle of a preliminary injunction hearing. It hadn't even been issued yet in Boasberg's court. That would be like me going to get a temporary restraining order against an abusive person, and the abusive person saying to a higher court, hey, take this restraining order off of me while we figure this out.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. The reason that the restraining order was put in place in the first time, and the law dictates, even if the temporary restraining order is, we find it to be wrong or unlawfully, issued, you still have to follow it. You still have to follow that temporary restraining order, i.e., turning the planes around. But the fact that they're overseas right now, or in a foreign country, may actually help them because they might not have to file their habeas petition in the Fifth Circuit, which is
Right.
certain to go Trump's way. So we'll see, because they didn't say bring everybody back. They didn't say finish your contempt
Nope.
proceedings.
Nope.
They did, and just fucking Sotomayor and Jackson are like, excuse me, we have to. This could be a criminal or somebody with unclean hands, and you're rewarding them. It's absolute
It
tyrannical bullshit, and and I get it. People are like, this isn't a win for Trump, but it's certainly not a win for the rule of law.
Yeah, I was seeing people trying to spin it, and I don't buy it. I understand they're saying, "Oh, yeah, the due process," but what's the point of due process if the Trump administration openly flouts due process in front of our face, mocks and ridicules Judge Boasberg when Judge Boasberg's been on it? He's been on it. He's like, "Why are these people here? Turn the plane around." They didn't turn the plane around, and then they
Exploiting
mock
due
Judge.
process is why Trump isn't in prison right now.
Yeah. Like Judge Boasberg said, turn the plane around. They said, "Oops, sorry, it's already taken off. Do you have jurisdiction? We don't. I don't know." And then they're mocking Judge Boasberg, saying, "Oh, we don't have jurisdiction over El Salvador. Do you?" And Judge Boasberg then is like, "Okay, where's the due process? Okay, give me the information." They delay. He was going to hold him in contempt of court, but then they realized they got their buddies in black robes cosplaying as judges. Samuel Alito, whose wife flew not just one but two flags associated with the January 6th insurrection. And Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginny Thomas, folks, supported the violent insurrection, sending affirmative texts to, at that time, what was the guy's name? His White House chief of staff at the time of the
Mark
insurrection.
Meadows.
Mark Meadows, right? So this is what we're dealing with, folks. And Roberts, you know what really pisses me off, Allison, is all these people who tried to make Roberts into this conservative who cares about the reputation of the court. I always said bullshit. This is the man who had no problem with Citizens v. United, who had no problem overturning the Voting Rights Act, which he probably dreamed about doing since he was a teenage member of the Federalist Society, right? Which is what he did. The first thing he did, he gets in, he goes, Shelby, right? Probably got a hard on with Shelby and Citizens United. Forgive me, folks. It's the end of Ramadan. I could
Yeah,
talk
no,
like
no,
this.
it's fine. He's
Yeah.
he's grudge
Yeah.
tugging to gutting voting
Yeah,
rights. Yeah.
he's terrible. I'm glad you mentioned the Alien Enemies Act, which, folks, has been used three times, only three times, from 1798, right? Used during wartime. I think it was War of 1812, World War One, and in World War Two. And the Alien Enemies Act, folks, was used and abused by the people in power at that time. FDR, yes, even Democrats are responsible to intern innocent Americans of Japanese descent, citizens. Innocent folks, your neighbors, who were citizens, were used under wartime extraordinary measures because they were a potential security threat. Later on, we found out what we knew at the time. It was all bullshit. All the evidence they used was nonsense. These were innocent Americans who, at the time, it wasn't the Haitians, it wasn't the Muslims, it wasn't the Venezuelans, it was the Japanese who were the threat. Lives were destroyed. They were interned for 2 years, lost everything, and America went along with it. And we didn't learn from that history. We didn't learn from Korematsu. Here we have, as of today, and check out that Sotomayor dissent that Allison's been talking about. Sotomayor in her dissent says, based on this reasoning, the Trump administration can do this to citizens. And lo and behold, Allison, did you see what Caroline Levitt said today in the press conference?
Oh, which part?
She agreed with Donald Trump, who said that they're open to sending U.S. citizens to foreign gulags.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So, like, to say that the Alien Enemies Act was employed in a more fair manner in World War II than it is being employed right now is saying something. And I figured you would appreciate this. I know you're more Star Wars than Star Trek, but
I'm
I
Star Trek too.
I picked up George
Oh,
Takei's book, They Call
yeah.
This Enemy, and I had him sign my photo that says "Defeat Fascism."
Oh, that's dope.
And he
That's
and I
dope.
because he was going to put "Reach for the Stars," and I'm like, "Could you put defeat fascism?" And he's like, "Oh my,
He
excellent
goes, I will.
message. I certainly will. Thank you for fighting the good fight." But it's terrifying. All joking aside, the Supreme Court has literally what they did with this ruling on an emergency docket to a restraining order administrative stay. They have literally created another tier of justice
Mm,
in our justice system. We're at like it used to be a two-tiered system of justice. Now it's got like 42 tiers. And Donald Trump seems to be at the top.
mm,
The wealthy seem to be at the top. The ones who can who if they're handed a piece of paper that says you have a week to file a habeas petition in the 5th Circuit, first of all, you have to break that down and understand what it means. But he would have the money to hire, a lawyer, a shitty lawyer, but a lawyer nonetheless, to file that habeas petition for him in in a Texas district court. Who has that? Who has those resources? And knowing that is deliberately creating um, it's deliberately relegating somebody to a tier of justice that's not on par with everyone else.
it's not just a tier of justice. I mean, I don't want to. I'm spending time with this, folks, because I just want people to sit with it because we can get numb to cruelty. We can normalize tyranny. 238 people, brown folks, here, most of them here without any crimes, just randomly picked up by the Trump administration and kidnapped And not even forget, we're not even talking about the detentions of pro-Palestinian students in Louisiana. That in itself is terrible. Then flown to another country where Bukele is being paid $6 million of your taxpayer dollars to do God knows what to them. And now Donald Trump, over the weekend, when he was at Air Force One, wants to send citizens there. And then Caroline Levitt, affirmative action for blonde bimbos, the speaker, the press secretary, said, yeah, we're looking into that. And this Supreme Court is perfectly fine giving him a rubber stamp through a procedural, if you will, backdoor, right? Knowing full well that this administration, it's not me, it's not Allison, it's not the libs, it's this administration itself saying, we sent this poor father as an administrative error. Oops. And you and I know, Allison, Donald Trump can pick up the phone. The art of the deal. He's going to make the entire world bend the knee during his trade war, right? That's how tough he is. But he can't call Bukele and say, you better bring back this guy. He can't do it.
Oh,
He
he
can't
can't
do it.
even tell you. He can't even tell you about it because it's a state secret. Even
Oh,
though
okay.
even though the tail numbers were shared on Truth Social by him, and I was able to track them. It's yeah. Oh, and by the way, as a former blonde bimbo, don't drag us into this. Um,
You are my favorite blonde
but which
non
is
bimbo.
former, the blonde part or the bimbo part?
You
Um,
are legally blonde. You're the smart ones. Do not ever compare yourself to Caroline Levitt.
I object. Okay.
She won her
What happens?
case.
What happens when he suspends habeas corpus? If
Mm,
habeas is the only, no, I don't see anybody talking about this. I talked about it right after the election because I was thinking of, oh crap, what if he comes after us? Like folks like me and
yeah,
you, political
yeah.
dissidents, and he says that Antifa or the left wing Marxists are um, a terrorist organization and suspends habeas, and we can be detained without due process. So this seems to me like it could be a problem if the Supreme Court says your only remedy is habeas, and he suspends habeas because of the invasion.
Yep.
What then for them? You know,
Well, what then for us, Allison? I'm so glad you brought it up because I keep receipts like you, and I
I meant
take
the
them literally.
238 people, but yeah, it's all of us that will be impacted. It's the poem, right? I didn't speak
That's
for.
what people aren't realizing. I mean, and it's in real time as of today that Caroline Levitt, whom you're the exact opposite of, echoed and supported what Donald Trump said that he's open to sending U.S. citizens, that's you and me, everyone who's watching, to a foreign gulag. And furthermore, this president, folks, I keep the receipts, before he was elected, he quoted Hitler yet again. And he's the first president and presidential candidate ever to say that he would sick the National Guard and the military against the enemy from within. So I will take you up on him suspending habeas, and I'll give you well, let's just, I don't know, muse. Suppose he's really struggling. Suppose there's a
So you'll
2026
you'll
midterm.
see my habeas suspension, and you'll raise me.
I'm going to raise you. He's going to declare martial law. He's going to say that there is an invasion and an attack from within by subversives, and the enemies from within are part of the deep state that are working with our enemies in Canada and Mexico to overturn U.S. democracy and to protect America. He's been granted broad powers as the executive and the commander in chief to declare martial law, suspend elections, not permanently. He's just going to punt on them for a bit until he can get a crackdown on these subversives. And he's going to use the Alien Enemies Act and these procedural backdoors that were giving him a green light to suspend habeas, detain us, kidnap us, uh, and deport us to foreign gulags while he cleans the streets. Am I crazy?
No, no. But when I have those thoughts to myself, I feel like the preppers that I used to make fun of watching the History Channel. I'm like, do I need to buy diamonds and sew them into my pants? Like seriously, like what do I do? I have.
You would then be Senator Menendez.
True, yeah, but at least diamonds
Gold
don't have
bars.
serial numbers on them that can be traceable uh, from people that I have been bribed by who said they were stolen. Do you see him angling for a pardon today? It's sad. Um, anyway, what were we talking about? No, you don't sound crazy. It's. I mean, I have a plan. I have a go bag. I have a plan in place. I have a Faraday bag. Like these are the kinds of things that have crossed my mind, because we've seen it in the past, and every time it seems like people are surprised. Not anybody probably listening within the sound of our voices, or you or me, but people go, "Oh, I didn't even see that coming. Oh, I didn't think they would uh, crown him king." I was surprised by the immunity ruling.
Yeah, I
Um,
was too, Allison. I was too.
A-
I was like, I said they won't go that broad, and once I read it, I was like, wow.
Amy
And it
Coney
takes,
Barrett was surprised by that Opus Dei lady. Um, I'm being nice. Was surprised by that, and I'm like, that's it. I'm not going to be surprised anymore. And so it's when I wrote the piece yesterday, that's why it's the Supreme Court strikes again, and not, oh my God, I can't believe this just happened. Uh, so um, the timing was unexpected. Again, I thought for sure they would wait for the preliminary injunction to be heard and signed, for the state secrets privilege to be adjudicated, which was the hearing that was supposed to happen today, that got canceled because the Tros were vacated. I thought for sure they would finish the contempt proceedings so that they could at least come to the court with clean hands. Because, oh, well, the Supreme Court's certainly not going to hear a case on equitable considerations with inequitable behavior. But I have a feeling they did it before so that they wouldn't have to deal
yeah.
with the equitable jurisdiction question. Do you know what I mean? Um, so it's
Can I ask you? Can I ask you this question? I'll get you out here soon enough, and thank you all for joining us. We got like 900 people, which means more and more people are joining. I appreciate it. I'm new. Me and Allison are new to these Substack lives. You should have heard our conversation before. We're like, we figured it out. Oh,
he's like, well, I'm gonna put a note about it, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what's a note? And then I
yeah.
get a thing on my Substack that says, Wajad Ali has posted a note, and I'm like, oh, okay, notes.
Yeah, she goes, "How will you invite me to this?" And I'm like, "I think you'll get something on your phone." She goes, "What? How? Okay." So we're thank you for putting up with us, gray beards. We're learning, but you all seem to be enjoying it, and I knew Allison would be the perfect person to break this down. I want to ask you this. I was talking to Mark Tushnet, who's a premier constitutional lawyer, 3 weeks ago. You all can see the interview on my Substack. And he said something which is on point. He said, the wild card to me is not Roberts. He said, the wild card to me, he said this 3 weeks ago to me, is Amy
Amy
Barrett.
Coney
And
Barrett.
yeah, and I said, why? I was like, not Roberts. He goes, it's because you said the Opus Dei and the religion stuff. Yeah, but as a result, she has been exposed to more communities. She has been exposed to more people. And I think she takes her religion very seriously. And there might be something there with the exposure to different communities, different cultures, different people that might bring about some empathy where she might be a check. He said this 3 weeks ago. And again, the bar is so low, it's in hell. But seeing Amy Barrett both yesterday and today come out and join the Liberals, what do you think, Allison?
Yeah, she joined him in that other administrative
True.
stay
Yeah.
thing as well. And this, for us, at least for Andy McCabe and I, when the Jack podcast was called Jack because Jack Smith was still doing things, um, in the immunity ruling, we were all like, Amy Coney Barrett dissented on the fourth holding, which was that official acts evidence can't be used. And in the oral argument, she's like, wait a minute. So if I want to charge someone with bribery, like if somebody gives, like if Steve Bannon gives Donald Trump $1 million to make him ambassador to the Bahamas, and a prosecutor wants to you know charge bribery there, you're saying that I can't bring the fact that he appointed him the ambassador to the Bahamas as evidence, which is one of the three legs of the bribe, of the quid, one of the two legs of the quid. It's the quid to the quo. You're saying I can't bring that in because that's an official act? And John Sauer was like, yeah, he's doing his best RFK Jr. impersonation. Yeah, and also you have SEAL Team 6 shoot somebody and it's fine.
Yep.
And she was like, wow. And then when she dissented on that fourth holding, Andy and I were like, huh, maybe we've got not an ally, but not a complete and total fascist in our midst. So Been thinking that for a while. But we'll see. I mean, she only dissented on parts 2 and 3B, but those were kind of the big ones in this decision that came out last night. And so we'll see going forward, and we're gonna see pretty soon here, probably within the next 72 hours, what happens with Abrego Garcia.
He's the
Because
father, folks. He's the father from Maryland who was given withholding of removal and has been sent back to the country that he tried to escape, and whom the Trump administration has said was sent in an administrative error.
maybe he
Uh,
should include in his filings that he's Catholic or something, just to sort of be like, hey.
with the MAGA hat. And also, final question for you. What about Roberts and his legacy? Because I was told, Allison, Roberts cares a lot about the integrity and reputation of the Supreme Court. And as such, because he cares so much about the reputation, he will do the right thing and hold Trump accountable. I heard that for the past 10 years, Allison.
Yeah, that's the one weird thing about these folks is that they seem to that it seems like their purchase price is what they think their legacy is worth. Do
Mm,
you know what I mean? Like Mitch
mm.
McConnell or John Roberts or Lindsey Graham seem to not. Republicans used to really care about their legacy and what they would be leaving behind and how people would see them in history. And they there seems to be a price that makes them forget or not care about how history views them. And John Roberts' price has been met, whatever that price
Mm.
is. And we saw the pat on the back at the whatever 100 days, not 100 days, but that first speech he gave in Congress, when he patted him on the back and said, thanks, thank you, won't forget it. Um, that's just what it is. I guess every evil person has a price, and somebody paid his.
And it's speaking about that 100-day speech, that now viral video of Justice Barrett. Did you clock that? Where she looked at him with just contempt, and now MAGA's using it, and MAGA's turning on Barrett and calling her a DI hire. I think something happened in that speech that soured Barrett, because he approached Roberts and gave the quid pro quo. We saw the video and the clip, but there's this great clip, folks. See it if you can find it, where Justice Barrett, she smiles at Donald, and just like Melania, as soon as he walks by, she goes like this,
Hmm.
and it's kind of. But Allison, thank you
Maybe he
so much for
farted. Maybe
breaking
he
this.
just farted. Maybe he's got a full diaper. I don't know. It could be something like a Jenna
Yeah,
Ellis, Rudy Giuliani situation. We could be
uh,
wrong.
Amy, that's for you. It's the world's best fart. Smells like potpourri. You're welcome. Thanks so much for
I'm
what
gonna
you've been
bottle it.
doing.
Trump
Yeah,
farts.
bottle it, sell it. It's a fragrance. It's a
Partner
Trump. It's called
jar.
the Musk. The Trump Musk. People will love it. The Trump Musk people. I'm smart. See what I just did? That's right. Folks, thank you so much, Allison, for
I
breaking this
invented
down.
farts. I invented farts.
The best farts. Some people don't like farts, but my farts are the best farts. They used to sell farts at groceries, at grocery stores.
What are
Man,
groceries? Tell me, sir.
this is proof. Can I just say this, folks? It's proof that this dude has never gone to a grocery store. That's proof. He has never shopped at a grocery store. He has no idea what he's talking about. And we were talking about this with Jared. It's
Man of the
clear to me and
people.
Jared. It's clear to me and Jared, Allison. This is a diminished man.
Hmm.
He spent the first 25% of his presidency golfing to the tune of $30 million. He is ossifying. He is repeating the talking points about trade deficit and trade war, which is completely wrong. You have an MBA, I don't. Since the 80s, he refuses to learn. And groceries, I don't know if it's dementia. I just think it's him literally not knowing what a grocery store is. I'm pretty sure he calls the fridge. He tells someone, he goes, Steven, give me the Diet Pepsi, the Diet Coke from the box with ice. I want the Diet Coke from the box with ice.
Cold box. I
Uh,
need the cold box cans, please.
Cold box, give me the Diet Pepsi from the cold box. And folks, I think he's completely checked out. And the last thing I want to say is, since everyone's forgetting everything because the economy is collapsing, Signalgate, it's a big deal. People should be fired, folks. Signalgate, it's potentially criminal to release confidential information and military strikes in an unsecure app, which is what Pete Hegseth did, and he lied about it. And Mike Waltz, by the way, we know who he Venmos because it's public, and he also uses government emails. He uses Gmail to send government emails. Remember but her emails, Allison? But her emails.
That was at least a
This is where we
private
are.
server.
Oh,
You know, nothing marked classified. But yeah, and I do think it's pretty great, although it probably won't go anywhere, that the Department of Defense Inspector General, who was the former PDIG, right, the former Principal Deputy Inspector General under Biden, who is now the acting Inspector General at the DoD because Trump fired all the inspectors general when he got there, except for two, the two kind of corrupt ones that he likes. He's actually going to do an investigation into Hegseth,
mm.
and so that could take, probably like 4 years or something, and we won't get the report because I'm sure his Trump's pick for Inspector General. Although I will, hats off to Brian Schatz and Ruben Gallego and Adam Schiff and a few other senators who are actually now blocking unanimous consent. So it might actually be longer before that new DOD IG gets there, the one that Trump is going to be in Trump's pocket. Hopefully that information on Signalgate comes out prior to that, but I don't have a lot of hope on
Yeah,
checks and balances.
you sound like an immigrant Muslim father. Father, will we go to Toys R Us? Inshallah. Translation? No. So yeah, inshallah, this will happen, folks.
Mm.
This is what happens in a fascist regime. I use the F word. I've been using it for a while. This is what happens when authoritarians get power. They flex, use, and abuse that power. This is what happens when there's grifters in charge. They continue the grift and help their buddies escape accountability and fail up and make money while the best of us get stomped on. But we have the numbers and we have people like Allison who are doing the good work. Allison, thank you so much. I kept you longer, but people stuck around and now we have more than we have like almost 1,200 people watching us. So maybe we should keep doing these Substack live chats. We finally figured out the code. You should. I wish I could copy paste. Allison's like, what should I do? How should I promote it? What? A note? Okay. And I was just like, please God,
Do I
let
type on
Allison
Blue
get.
Sky the following words with a link, or like, yeah,
Yeah. But we figured it out, folks. We figured it out. So we updated our software and we have evolved. And thank you so much for joining us. People loved you, Allison. Please shamelessly promote yourself.
Just hey, MuellerSheWrote.com. All of my, you and I talked about this on the Daily Beans Wash. All of my content is free. We're terrible capitalists. But if you want to support, you can. But there's nothing that's behind a paywall. Everything is available for free at MuellerSheWrote.com, and you can follow me everywhere at Mueller She Wrote. All my podcasts are free, and you can find those wherever you get your podcasts. MSWmedia.com will show you if you like news with swearing. Try the Daily Beans. If you haven't listened to the Daily Beans yet, I think you really might enjoy it. I go out for you and swim through all the news and get myself covered in tons and tons of horrible dog shit. And then pick out what I think is important and I curate it and bring it to you with swearing. And I think you'd enjoy it. It's a way to stay informed while also not feeling alone and sharing in some frustrations with like-minded people, and it helps you keep your sanity while also getting the headlines. So I
For
appreciate
those
you,
who
Wash.
No, for the folks who said they didn't hear, it's called the Daily Beans Podcast. I was on it on Sunday. We had a lot of fun. And you can find everything that she does on MullerSheWrote.com. I'm going to post this on Substack. Allison, you know what happens is you can post this as a Substack post so people can find it later. So I'll do that and do a quick write up and link to you, and then you can restack it. You see, kids, I'm learning the lingo and I'm going to spread the love to Allison. And also, what Allison said is Allison has no excuse. I have an excuse. I'm the son of immigrants. I'm an English major. My dad every day calls me with pain and says, Joy Reid even has paid subscribers. Even Don Lemon. What's wrong with you? And I said, I just feel bad. The economy is tanking, and I feel like information should be free because democracy, folks, it dies in darkness. That was a motto of a paper, a once respected paper. What was that called? Oh, yes, Bezos Post. So Allison unfortunately shares my affliction, but she's an MBA major, so she should know better. And she still voluntarily is a masochist, and we have kept everything for free, but we rely on the kindness of strangers. I've kept the left hook for it's free, but if you want to help, it's $4 a month. Mueller, she wrote, what is that? How much is your Substack? Like $5 a month?
It's like $900 a month.
It's free. It's free. So help her out if you got a few bucks, folks. Like think about a crappy coffee you drank. You give her $4 or $5 a month, you're helping her put out great content. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Be kind to yourself. Have hope, folks. There's more of us than there are of them. Remember that. There are more of us than there are of them. And courage and hope is contagious, just like measles, which you can avoid with vaccines. But all it takes is seeing one person stand up to the schoolyard bully, and then the rest of us stand up. It's going to be a long walk. It's going to be tough, but inshallah, we'll make it through. And you need to support people like Allison, who fought the good fight and have fought uphill for the past 10 years. Thank you, Allison, my friend. Thank you for joining. Thank you for staying longer than I asked you to stay for, but we got more people. And now you too can do Substack Lives, Allison, and finally get some money.
Okay, I'll make sure to Google how exactly to do that.
Just call me, I'll tell you. Take care, everyone.
Bye.